Alright, so Griffin of Might asked me to check out 40K Theories, The Genetic Heritage of the Death Eagles. And this is actually a chapter that, for whatever reason, I don't know anything about. And there's things in 40K that I know, and there's things in 40K that, for whatever reason, I don't have the faintest clue about, and this is one of them. So, I mean, you can... That's one thing about 40K that just continuously blows my mind. The more you know, the more you find out that you really don't know. In any case, we're going to jump into this and hear what he has to say about it. Here we go.
The Death Eagles are a loyalist chapter of the Adeptus Astartes created during the course of an unknown founding, although the chapter has been documented as being active as early as M32. Despite their long history of service to the Imperium, little information regarding the Death Eagles appears to exist within Imperial records, resulting in much of the chapter's history, as well as the majority of their battle honours, being utterly unknown to those outside of the chapter's ranks. Those few detailed and public accounts of the chapter that are known to exist have shown that the Death Eagles have participated in at least 2 high-profile campaigns over the course of their existence. The first and earliest of which would be that of a conflict known as the Solar Rebellions.
Okay.
Sometime around M32, a number of warbands from the Iron Warriors, World Eaters, and Night Lord's traitor legions would begin orchestrating a number of anti-imperial uprisings throughout the western marches of Segmentum Solar. Over the course of a single year, the resulting carnage and anarchy brought about by these insurgencies would cause multiple planetary systems and even entire sectors throughout the Segmentum to teeter upon the brink of collapse.
One thing that a lot of people don't get, and if you're somebody that's just learning the lore by watching videos like mine, there are entire chapters of Space Marines because of the way that that knowledge consistently gets lost in the Imperium. There's a large number of Space Marine chapters that simply do not know who their founding legion was. This is a good example of that. There are a couple of others that are perfect examples of that. But in any case, continuing on.
However, these rebellions would ultimately be put down by multiple Space Marine chapters, which included forces drawn from the ranks of the Death Eagles, Minotaurs, Carcharodons, and the Angels of Absolution, who would strike against the traitors with both sudden and overwhelming force. Despite suffering heavy casualties during the course of the conflict, the Loyalists would succeed in slaying the leaders of the various warbands that were responsible for sowing the seeds of strife, allowing the Imperium to finally put down these rebellions. However, following several inquisitorial studies into the events of the Solar Rebellions, there are many that believe that the conflict and, by extension, the role played by the Death Eagles during it never actually took place, although there is still much deliberation in this regard. The second major campaign that the Death Eagles...
That's another thing too. Entire histories of wars have either been made up or have been lost. And it's no surprise that some people in the 41st millennium don't even think that Horus existed. He's like a boogeyman. He's a 10,000-year-old boogeyman.
Were noted to have participated in was the War of the False Primarch, which took place in late M33.
I didn't know about this.
After 80 years of long and bloody conflict, which plunged Segmentum Pacificus into chaos and turmoil, the High Lords of Terror would convene a gathering of 5 loyalist chapters, which would become known within official records as the Pentarchy of Blood.
Nice.
These chapters, which included the Death Eagles, Carcharodons, Red Talons, Flesh Eaters, and the Charnel Guard, would then be tasked with hunting down and purging 11 other Space Marine chapters who had been declared as Traitoris Perdita for their actions during the course of the war. The Pentarchy of Blood would prove successful in this endeavour, not only by destroying the traitor chapters, but also by subjecting their homeworlds to exterminatus.
Yay.
And yet, while the Death Eagles have achieved a number of noteworthy victories against the enemies of man, the true identity of the chapter's parent legion and primogenitor Primarch have become subject for debate. So from which of the first founding legions could the Death Eagles truly be descended from?
Just based off their iconography and the way they present themselves, Death Eagles could probably come from one of maybe 3 chapters. One being Raven Guard, second being Dark Angels, and the third, maybe the Blood Angels.
Within the Imperium's own records, it is commonly assumed that the Death Eagles are themselves descended from the 19th Legion of the Legione Astartes, the Raven Guard. As detailed within Imperial Armor Volume 8, while the Raven Guard would initially establish only 3 successor chapters over the course of the Second Founding, the Revilers, Raptors, and Black Guard, a number of later founding chapters would also be presumed to have been derived from Raven Guard genetic stock. These chapters include not only the Death Eagles, but also the Flame Eagles, Dark Eagles, Knights of the Raven, Imperial Talons, Stormwings, Stormhawks, and Hawklords chapters. While this may appear to suggest that the Death Eagles are without doubt the sons of Corvus Corax, it is worth noting that these aforementioned chapters are only speculated to be descended from the Raven Guard, as opposed to such information being outright confirmed. The very notion of the Death Eagles being a Raven Guard successor is also called into question by the fact that the Hawklords, who, as mentioned earlier, were also speculated to be a Raven Guard successor, are in truth, as detailed both within the 6th edition Space Marine Codex and the second incarnation of the 8th edition Space Marine Codex, descended from the Ultramarines Legion. Because of this, it's entirely possible that any claims suggesting that the Death Eagles are descended from the 19th Legion are in actuality false. Of the 9 Loyalist Legions, only 2 can be ruled out with any degree of certainty as being the potential primogenitors of the Death Eagles, the Space Wolves, and Salamanders.
Really? Oh, well,
Prior to the introduction of Primaris Marines, the Space Wolves would only sire a single successor chapter, the Wolf Brothers, before their gene seed would degrade and mutate to such an extreme degree that only the native population of their homeworld of Fenris were capable of surviving the gene seed implantation process. It was due to this genetic degradation that would ultimately result in the extinction of the Wolf Brothers chapter, as they would prove incapable of replenishing any battlefield losses. The Salamanders, by contrast, would be rendered exempt from having their legion divided into smaller chapters, due to how few of the legion's warriors would survive the events of the Horus Heresy, although they would nonetheless accept many of the terms laid out within the Codex Astartes, such as that concerning maximum chapter strength. While a number of other chapters, such as the Storm Giants and Black Dragons, are rumoured to be descended from the Salamanders, it would not be until after the onset of the Ultima Founding that the first official Salamander successor chapters would be established. If the Death Eagles are descended from a legion other than the Raven Guard, then from a purely statistical standpoint, the most likely candidate would be the 13th Legion of the Legione Astartes.
Very technically true, which sort of kind of means they could be... Is that the Inquisition knocking on my door?
The Ultramarines. The Ultramarines were themselves noted for being the single largest Space Marine Legion, as well as sporting a gene...
Alright, this is why I hated the Ultramarines with a passion way back in the day. This guy screams, I'm a douchebag.
Seed that demonstrates exceptional levels of purity and genetic stability. Because of this, the Ultramarines would go on to sire the single greatest number of successor chapters, establishing at least 23 such chapters during the course of the Second Founding alone. Because of the overall lack of information concerning the Death Eagles in general, it is impossible to confirm whether or not the chapter sports any particular flaws which serve as the genetic marker of a specific legion. For example, the gene seed of the Imperial Fists is noted to sport 2 deficient zygotes, rendering those that bear Dornian gene seed incapable of producing 2 of an Astartes' specialist organs: the Becher's gland, which is responsible for generating an acidic saliva, and the Susam membrane, which grants an Astartes the ability to undergo suspended animation. Those chapters descended from Blood Angel's genetic stock will typically exhibit signs of the Red Thirst, a biological flaw which instills an intense craving for blood, or the Black Rage, a psychological flaw that renders those who succumb to it utterly insane, believing themselves to be their Primarch Sanguinius during the final hours of the Horus Heresy.
I don't like the older art because it makes the Space Marines look like angry beetles.
While it is still certainly possible for the Death Eagles to be descended from the Raven Guard, Ultramarines, or another Loyalist Legion entirely, there is also a surprising amount of evidence to suggest that the chapter are in fact descended from one of the Traitor Legions, specifically the 3rd Legion of the Legione Astartes, the Emperor's Children.
I wasn't gonna go there, but if this is the case, I can see it.
As detailed within Horus Heresy Book 4, Conquest, the 34th Millennial, or 34th chapter of the Emperor's Children, would refuse to follow their Primarch into damnation, instead choosing to remain loyal to the Imperium during the course of the Horus Heresy. This particular chapter, known as the Death Eagles, would clash against their traitorous kin across multiple theatres of war, such as upon the world of Leith, the future home world of the Flame Falcons chapter, as well as throughout a strategically important region of space known as the Coronid Deeps, although their ultimate fate following the events of the heresy remains unknown. These Loyalist Emperor's Children were also noted for retaining their original Legion iconography and heraldry, being described as wearing such colours with pride and viewing themselves as the true inheritors of their Legion's legacy. What makes this latter piece of information somewhat significant is that the earliest known depictions of the modern-day Death Eagles chapter, such as within issue 112 of White Dwarf magazine, saw the chapter's warriors being clad in armour that was painted purple, white, and gold, colours that are more commonly associated with the Emperor's Children. Because of this, in addition to the final fate of the 34th Millennial being unknown, it's entirely possible that the Death Eagles of the Emperor's Children would go on to become the modern-day Death Eagles chapter following the events of the Horus Heresy. Although if this were indeed the case, then it remains unknown as to when the chapter would change their colour scheme from purple and gold to black and white. While such an idea may initially seem somewhat unlikely, it is worth noting that during the course of the Second Founding, a number of newly established chapters would choose to name themselves after their original Legion monikers. The most notable example in this regard, as detailed within Horus Heresy Book 6, Retribution, is that of the Angels Vermilion. During the course of the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, the 9th chapter of the Blood Angels Legion would bear the title of Angels Vermilion, with this chapter in particular going on to become one of the first Blood Angels successor chapters following the culmination of the Horus Heresy. Another similar such example can be seen with the Flesh Terrors chapter, who had named themselves after their founder, Nasir Amit, who was also known more infamously as the Flesh Terror.
And that was because he was batshit insane.
In turn, the fact that the modern-day Death Eagles were created during an unknown founding, despite the fact that they are clearly one of the older successor chapters in existence, regardless of who they may officially be descended from, may also support the possibility of the chapter being derived from traitor stock. After all, publicly stating that a chapter is descended from one of the traitor legions would no doubt raise many questions regarding the chapter's loyalty or genetic purity, especially after the foundation of powerful and fanatical organizations such as the Inquisition or Ecclesiarchy. As such, the Death Eagles may have had all records regarding their founding and, in turn, their genetic heritage conveniently misplaced in order to prevent the chapter from being persecuted. Ultimately, we may never know for certain as to which legion, loyalist or otherwise, gave rise to these proud and noble warriors. What do you think?
it wouldn't be the first time that a group has gone to extreme measures to hide what could be considered a dark past. The entirety of the Dark Angels and every single one of the successor chapters is in a constant state of paranoia and shadow warfare against a group of their own that turned traitor during the Horus Heresy. The Blood Ravens themselves are most likely either a Word Bearer's successor chapter, but most likely Thousand Sons successor chapter. There's a lot of examples of this all over the place. In any case, I'm going to finish this video.
Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.
Oh, okay, well, there we go. Again, it's a video that I love it when I learn stuff that I didn't know. But then again, this is stuff, the lore of 40K is so expansive that it would take literally forever to go through it all. Just because of everything that has been put in, all the stories, all the history, all the lore, and I mean, just look at the Horus Heresy itself. The Horus Heresy used to be about 3 to 4 pages in a codex, and now it is well over 60 books. It's well over. It's just, I mean, the amount of paper in the Horus Heresy that gets used, if you were just to collect it, I mean, if I were to collect the Horus Heresy, the thing would line up the entirety of that wall. And I have them all on audiobook. I'm currently listening to Mortis. In any case, there's so much about this that I just enjoy. This is just, like I was saying in another video not too long ago, people get a lot out of this, and there's a dozen ways to enjoy this. I like the lore. In any case, I'm going to be putting his information down in the description below. My Patreon's down there as well as the Discord. I'll catch you guys next time.